Occupy Boston, which was inspired by Occupy Wall Street, invited the 99% to speak out for economic and political systems that work for all people instead of just an elite few. Like many of the Occupy movements around the country at the time, Occupy Boston was calling for Wall Street reform, removing special interests from Washington, and much more. I spent a very windy October day with them in 2011 at the height of the movement.
Where you from?
Boston, Mass.
Nice. Boston.
The original Tea Party.
You'll be better off forgetting, disregard the sin. It's wrong. I'll read the rest without the line. You can always write out.
Most of the Occupy protesters and organizers I interviewed wished to remain anonymous.
We just want our country back. We've been getting robbed for the last 30 years, and we're awake now, and we're taking it back.
To make a statement about the greed that exists in the corporate structure of America. A lot of people just drive by and think that, oh, these people don't have jobs, they don't have anything anyway, why they got nothing better to do. But I don't think that's the case from what I've seen here. I've seen a lot of people that do care, and obviously have been hurt by the economic injustice that exists in the world today.
Now, have you guys been able to identify any one leader of this movement?
There are no leaders.
There are no leaders? Why? Now that's a real distinct difference from what the demonstrations we talk about, 40 years ago, 50 years ago. There were identifiable leaders.
Yeah.
How do you suppose something like this could make a real difference? Is that there isn't one person maybe making the decisions, kind of taking the role as someone who's going to really keep it together? I mean, do you think there's a benefit to having a leader, or do you think there's...
Well, yeah, you're speaking up for people with no voice, and the way you give people a voice is to listen to them when they talk.
So do you foresee a leader emerging from this group of people?
Who knows what this is going to become?
Yeah.
I mean, right now, we're just identifying the problem and kind of mobilizing the forces. I mean, people are always saying, there's no platform, you don't have any answers. We're at the point now where we're just starting to ask the right questions.
What I had found was that most people who were protesting were calling for Wall Street reform and removing special interests from government, but I could not identify any one single issue or demand that really summarized the Boston movement in its entirety. Clearly, all people involved with the Boston Occupy movement and in all movements across the United States are dissatisfied with how our country is being run and want fundamental, lasting change of many kinds.
Gone too far! Leave the tar sands where they are! Climate change has gone too far! Leave the tar sands where they are! Climate change has gone too far! Leave the tar sands where they are!
You can't buy anything.
Right.
So the whole economy grinds to a halt. You take their houses away from them because of some Wall Street manipulation of the market. Everybody pretty much agrees on that. I mean, you're not going to find too many people that are going to say that didn't happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They just knew what they were doing. They escalated the home prices. They sold out the mortgages, collected all the cash, went on their merry way. Meanwhile, everybody's homeless.
Right.
And they got no jobs.
Sure, those things are important. Globalization makes a difference.
Now you and Brian,
You're not just sunshine patriots, and you're here to turn things in an entirely different direction. And I'm introducing to you Brian Wilson.
A nonviolent uprising, so the authorities never have any excuse to commit violence. So it's very obvious if there is violence who is committing the violence. That's why nonviolence is so important in the uprising and the occupations, and so far it is primarily extremely nonviolent and very disciplined, and horizontal democracy, which is time has finally come. Horizontal, not vertical democracy. They probably wish that you will dwindle away as the winter comes on. It'll just be too much. But we need lots of winter soldiers.
The one has nothing to do with the other. The one has nothing to do with the other. Nothing at all. My neighborhood drunk lines up at the deli with his shaky hands and a swollen face. He waits for his coffee. Oh, they ask you to whistle while you work. They ask you to whistle while you work your life away. Thank you very much.
Free, doing it free. People come down here to play from their hearts because they believe and occupy the world. Because that's what we are now. We're occupying.
Sitting right here waiting while all the others sit aside.
And I think it all comes down to equality. If you look at everybody's complaint, like the example I gave you earlier, you know, if you're living in the hood and you steal some food to feed yourself and your kids for the night, you go to jail for a couple of years. If you steal millions of people's retirements and pensions, you go home, you never see a judge. That's about equality. That's saying the poor person is not valued the same in society as the financier, as the rich person. The war in Iraq, I mean, war is poor people killing poor people. If you're rich, you don't join the military. Where does the military recruit? They recruit in poor, disadvantaged neighborhoods, primarily minorities for better. I think it all comes down to equality. Healthcare is, our country basically says if you have enough money to afford healthcare, you know, you're a more worthy person in our society of life, of living, than if you're poor. And most people here would say a life is a life. It doesn't matter what financial situation you're born into, you should have the right to live. And by saying healthcare isn't for everybody, that's a different message.
What do you do here?
Roles aren't so defined. Right now, I'm primarily working with the tech groups.
Yep.
I do a lot of the online communication stuff. And
how important is that to this movement?
Hugely important. The New Yorker, I believe, the New Yorker or the Atlantic, they praised us and they said that Occupy Boston was one of the most media-savvy organizations they've ever seen.
Really? How old are you, Ben?
I'm 26.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You'll be better off without me. Better off to doubt